Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into what is absolutely, without a doubt, the strangest, most explosive tournament in FIFA history, the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland. Now, if you think you know modern international football, you might want to prepare yourself, because this is going to turn your expectations completely upside down. We're talking about a wild melting pot of unbreakable statistical records, deeply flawed rules, intense human drama, and historical mysteries that are still debated today.
Let's just kick things off with a totally staggering number, 5.38. That right there is the average number of goals scored per match back in 1954. To give you a little context on just how wild that is, modern tournaments usually average somewhere around 2.5 goals per game. This 5.38 average is an all-time record that still stands today, and frankly, it's probably never going to be broken.
To really put that into perspective, we are talking about 140 goals just exploding into the back of the net across only 26 matches. There was not a single goalless draw in the entire tournament. Think about that. As of today, this remains the very last World Cup in history where every single crowd got to see at least one goal, and honestly, they usually saw a whole lot more than just one.
Section 1. A weird and wild format. Rules that made no sense. So you might be wondering, how does an absolute avalanche of goals like that actually happen? Well, it was partly due to this incredibly bizarre group stage format. Normally, as you know, a group stage features a standard round robin. Everyone plays everyone, 3 matches each, 90 minutes, simple. But in 1954, the 16 teams were put into groups of 4, and get this, the 2 seeded teams only played the 2 unseeded teams. They literally never played each other. So teams only played 2 group matches. And it gets even stranger. If a group game was tied after 90 minutes, they actually played extra time right then and there in the group stage. It was just so chaotic that FIFA president Rodolphe Seeldreyers later declared this format would be entirely abandoned.
And the thing is, this baked-in chaos didn't just magically stop in the group stage, it spilled straight into the knockouts. In the semifinal, West Germany crushed Austria 6-1. In the quarters, Hungary beat Brazil 4-2 in a notoriously violent game. But the absolute crown jewel of the madness has to be Austria defeating the hosts Switzerland 7-5, a 12-goal thriller. To this day, it's the highest-scoring match in World Cup history.
Section 2. Hungary's Golden Team, the Unstoppable Force.
Right, so amidst all this unpredictable madness, one team stood head and shoulders above the rest, Hungary. They came into this tournament carrying an unbelievable record of 32 consecutive matches unbeaten. They were the absolute tournament favorites, led by their legendary captain, Ferenc Puskás, who was widely considered the best player in the world at the time. Contrast them with the unseeded West German squad. This was a team still recovering post-World War II. They'd actually been banned from the 1950 World Cup and only recently reinstated by FIFA, having played just 18 games since their return. On paper, a total absolute mismatch.
Now, because of that bizarre format we talked about, West Germany and Hungary ended up in the very same group, which led to one of the most fascinating tactical decisions in sports history. West German coach Sepp Herberger took a massive gamble. Instead of playing his best players in a grueling match against the unstoppable Hungarians, he just fielded at reserve side. Unsurprisingly, Hungary absolutely thrashed this reserve team 8-3. But because Germany took the easier route, they stayed fresh, easily beat Turkey 7-2 in a special playoff match, and advanced to the knockouts anyway. Herberger basically traded a meaningless group stage humiliation for a brilliant strategic advantage.
Section 3. The Miracle of Bern, the ultimate David versus Goliath final.
So Herberger's wild group stage gamble meant Hungary honestly had no idea how strong the German starting 11 actually was when they miraculously met again in the final at Wankdorf Stadium in Bern. And on the day of the match, the skies completely opened up. It just poured. In Germany, this famously became known as Fritz-Walter-Wetter, or Fritz-Walter's weather. See, the German captain, Fritz-Walter, had contracted malaria during the war, and as a result, he supposedly played his absolute best football in wet, rainy conditions. The weather was a massive psychological boost for the underdogs. Plus, the Germans had a serious technological edge. Ever heard of Adi Dassler? Yeah, the founder of Adidas. He provided the West German team with a brand new kind of football boot featuring exchangeable studs. So when the field turned to deep mud, the Germans simply swapped out their studs at halftime for better traction. Meanwhile, on the Hungarian side, their star captain Puskás was really struggling. He'd been injured earlier in the tournament by a German defender and was pushing through the final despite not being fully fit.
The opening minutes of this final were just explosive. Despite his injury, Puskás scores for Hungary just 6 minutes in. 2 minutes later, Cibor scores. It's 2-0 Hungary in 8 minutes, and it looks like a total rout is on. But then, West Germany storms right back. Morlock scores in the 10th minute, and then Helmut Rahn stunningly ties the game in the 19th minute. 4 goals in 19 minutes. The supposedly unbreakable Hungarians were suddenly in a dogfight in the mud.
The tension was just thick enough to cut with a knife for almost the entire rest of the match. The Hungarians missed chances, the mud slowed them down, and the German defense held firm. Then, just 6 minutes before the end of the match, legendary radio reporter Herbert Zimmermann delivered what is easily the most famous line in German broadcasting history, screaming into the microphone, "Rahn should shoot from deep."
And you know what? He did. Helmut Rahn took that exact shot, burying the 3rd goal for West Germany, giving them a 3-2 lead and completing one of the greatest, most shocking upsets in the history of international sports.
Section 4. Controversies and lasting legacy. A debated finish.
While the Germans celebrated what became known as the Miracle of Bern, the defeat was an absolute disaster for the Hungarians. And look, as with many legendary historical events, this match did not end cleanly. It naturally leads historians to ask a very direct question. Did West Germany cheat? To this very day, questions of refereeing errors and doping hang over the legacy of this tournament. So to understand this, we need to impartially look at the historical claims and the scientific investigations that followed.
Let's objectively look at the documented facts here. First up, the refereeing. In the 87th minute, Puskás actually scored an equalizer for Hungary, but it was disallowed for offside by the linesman. However, eyewitnesses and later a 2004 review of regional TV footage highly dispute that call, suggesting Puskás was actually onside. Second, the doping allegations. The German players have always maintained they were given vitamin C injections at halftime. But a 2010 study by Leipzig University posited that the players were actually injected with a banned methamphetamine, which could potentially explain why a wave of jaundice hit the West German squad right after the tournament.
But at the end of the day, despite the swirling controversies, the alleged doping, and that highly debated offside flag from the linesman, the results on the pitch stood. The whistle blew, and West Germany was handed the Jules Rimet Trophy, lifting their very first World Cup.
So what are we supposed to take away from all this? What actually happens when you mix a heavily flawed tournament format, an unstoppable 32-match unbeaten super team, and allegations of mid-game injections? Ultimately, the 1954 World Cup proves that sports history is rarely simple. It's a messy, fascinating blend of unbreakable statistical records, intense human drama, and persistent mysteries that we are literally still analyzing decades later.
And that leaves us with one final provocative thought. As football becomes increasingly modernized, as we move into this era of highly regulated, semi-automated tournaments where every single blade of grass is tracked by cameras, will we ever again see a competition quite as wild, flawed, and purely legendary as 1954? Thanks so much for exploring this remarkable piece of history with me on this explainer. I'll catch you in the next one.